And thank you, Giovanni, for the recording. Appreciate it. And so we have a short agenda today, but action-packed. We want to provide a quick welcome and overview. We will go over the Community First Technology Advisory Committee Subcommittee update. We will also be provided project updates on the overall project itself. We will have time for discussion and feedback. That's the most critical piece of this effort, is to hear from everyone on the call, you know, how you're feeling about the project, and if there's any additional feedback that you want us to have, that's the time to share with us. And then we will also move into next steps. As a reminder, you saw the little message there, the webcast is being recorded. By participating in the call, you consent that your name, voice, and your contributions will be included in our recorded materials. And we share that after the meeting. We share that with all of our participants, our advisory committee participants, and we also share that with other organizations that are very much interested in keeping up with the project itself. So my name is Stella Ursua. I'm the Senior Programs and Partnerships Manager at Grid Alternatives, the LA office. And I'm going to ask my partners here to just do a quick introduction, and then we'll move on to intros for all the folks that are out there on this call. So Giovanni, would you start us off, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Stella, and good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Giovanni Hernandez, and I'm the Senior Community Engagement Coordinator with Grid Alternatives Greater Los Angeles. I'll kick it off over to my colleague, Yoremi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yoremi. I'm a CSUOB student, and I'm currently interning at Grid Alternatives.
Thank you, Yoremi. And how about the CalSTART team, Alicia, Nathan, and Tuan?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Alicia Gildy, Vice President of Clean Fuels and Infrastructure, and I am fortunate to work with the Grid team on this great committee work. So thanks for being here today. And I'll hand it over to Nate.
Thanks, Alicia. Nate Fernandez here, a lead technical project manager on the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team. And I will pass it on over to Tuan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tuan Chi. I'm a project manager here at CalSTART. I work directly with Nate and Alicia on the eTruck Meta project. So excited to have everyone here today.
Thank you, Tuan. Thank you, Nate, Alicia. Appreciate you all. And I'm going to, I'm sorry, our colleague, Kristen Bush is out today, and she's from the Electric Power Research Institute, also known as EPRI, but I'm sure she'll be joining us again at the next meeting. But I would like, since we have a little time here, if you all wouldn't mind introducing yourselves. I think that would be really helpful to know who's part of this effort. And so I'm just going to go down and start to call on folks, if you don't mind. Marlon, if you can just tell us your name and the organization that you're with. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marlon Bornett. I'm a professor at USC, and I direct our USC Metrans Transportation Consortium. But pleased to be here. By the way, I'm going to have to switch to phone in about maybe 15 minutes, but I'll keep following along by phone at that time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. How about Genevieve?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Giuliano. I'm also in the Department of Urban Planning and Spatial Analysis at USC with Marlon. And I'm a transportation researcher and former director of Metrans.
Very good. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Hamid?
Hi, everyone. I'm Hamid Rahai. I'm Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Engineering at Castle Long Beach. I'm also the Director of the Center for Energy and Environmental Research and Services here at CSUOB.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Hamid. How about Nancy?
Hi, everybody. Nancy Pfeffer. I'm the Executive Director of the Gateway Cities Council of Governments. We are 27 cities in Southeast LA County, very, very interested in zero emission trucks in our region. And I think I'm probably going to be having to go to the same meeting Marlon is going to head to, because we have another one that starts at, I think it's at 11:30 in Southgate, and I'm in Paramount. So I will also make up for arriving late by leaving early, and I apologize, but I'm here for the duration.
No worries, Nancy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's see, Thomas. Great to see you, Thomas.
Hi, Thomas Yelenich with the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. We represent the marine terminal operators and ocean carriers working in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Very good. Thanks so much. Great to have you. Caitlin?
I'm Caitlin Dinius, and I work with the California Energy Commission. I'm on the transportation team in our Energy Research and Development Division. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Caitlin. Great to have you here. Viviana.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Viviana Gomez, Transportation Deputy with Supervisor Han's office, and I will also be at the same meeting, so I might have to hop off a little early.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Commissioner Jacqueline Badejo. Hey, Commissioner.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Jacqueline Badejo here representing West Clean Air and Energy Committee, former transportation representative of the Watts Neighborhood Council, and just looking forward to the great work that we'll do with this research. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Really appreciate you being here again. Jordan?
Hey, Jordan Smith here. I'm with Grid Edge Innovation at Southern California Edison and Chief Engineer for eTruck project at SE.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it. Dana?
Sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Dana Fries. I'm with Long Beach City College, and I am the Interim Director of Workforce Development. I also oversee some work supporting workforce assessments pertaining to electrification for the Port of Long Beach. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you, Dana. Thank you. Jocelyn?
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Jocelyn with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. I'm the energy policy organizer there. We organize community members all throughout the Southeast LA, East LA, Long Beach regions here in Tongva territory. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jocelyn. So glad to have you here. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And I just wanted to spend just a couple minutes to provide you a chance to introduce yourself, because we really appreciate your time, your being here. And we wanted to show just the depth of knowledge here, the depth of subject matter expertise from all parts of our communities. And so we're really excited about this effort. And so we're going to jump right into, let's see, project overview. And our partner Tuan from CalSTART is going to be, I'm going to hand that over to her, and she'll just share a little overview.
Great. Thank you so much, Stella. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take a few minutes here to provide you with the project overview. So the purpose of the eTruck project is to create a California research hub to facilitate and accelerate the electrification of the medium and heavy duty drayage vehicle market in key areas. And our goals and objectives are to advance research, development, and demonstration activities that extend the delivery range of large weight class battery electric trucks, beginning with drayage operations. We also plan to engage broad stakeholders with a community first approach and use your input to promote equity and workforce development opportunities in priority communities. These stakeholders include pollution burden and impacted communities, as well as truck fleets, charging equipment and service providers, electric utilities, and planning agencies. Lastly, we strive to plan, design, and deploy innovative, scalable public corridor charging strategies for medium and heavy duty electric trucks, beginning with drayage trucks. And with that, I'll pass it back to Stella.
Thank you, Tuan. Really appreciate it. And so you had a chance to see the overall project goals. And so these are the goals, objectives, and function of the Community First Technology Advisory Committee. And some of you might remember this from previous meetings, but just gonna kind of skim through this. So Tuan mentioned this, but our goal is to use a community-first engagement framework to ensure that pollution impacted, underserved, and tribal communities are involved in creating and guiding the initiative. And so the objectives under that inform the project on community engagement, needs, and impact, the dissemination and solicitation of input on project activities from community members and groups, promote equity in these priority communities, and foster a community-driven partnership for technology and zero-emission freight corridor development, planning, and site prioritization. And the functions of the advisory committee provide input on the community engagement strategy and equity plan, support equity and community engagement goals, and inform engagement activities. And so we've been fast at work on these goals and objectives and the function of the advisory committee. We have also, and Tuan will share a little bit more on this, but we've had the advisory committee meeting for Community First. We've had workforce development community meetings, and we've had subcommittee meetings as well. So we've been working very, very hard to move the project along to make sure, again, can't stress enough that there's an equitable approach to this effort. And so you'll hear about that a little bit more in the next few minutes. I'm going to shoot it back over to Tuan. We're doing a little back and forth here for a few minutes here, but Tuan, if you could provide us some project updates, I think that would be really helpful to the audience.
Sorry, if I can interject real quick. We skipped one slide. If we can go back to the CTAC subcommittee slide and just go over on what updating folks of this
Yes.
this update here. Yes.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you. I apologize for that. I didn't jump into too quick here. So some of the subcommittee updates, you're absolutely right, Giovanni. So we convened on September 13th. And we had a really great show of participation. I think we had about 24 to 26 participants. The feedback from the subcommittee was incorporated into the community engagement strategy and equity plan. We are still working on additional stakeholders that have said that they want to be involved. We want to make sure that we're also looking at startups and incubators for this effort. Independent owners, operators, and small fleet owners. That was feedback from the committee that we need to make sure that these folks are all involved, as well as local municipalities and state government departments and federal agencies. So another thing that came from that subcommittee meeting is that we want to ensure that there's no displacement of local residents or small businesses for this effort, that we prioritize health and safety measures for community members, as well as for the drivers. And we want to mitigate and prevent traffic congestion within these selected communities. So these are all of the efforts of the subcommittee. This is all feedback that came from them, suggestions. And so thank you, Giovanni, for pointing this out. This is really important, the work that we've been doing here and the updates that we're providing now. Okay, so now we're moving back. And Tuan, if you can take it from here. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Stella. So I'm going to take a few minutes here to provide you with an update on the overall progress of the project. As you may know, the project has 3 other committees besides this wonderful CTAC committee. They are the Technical Advisory Committee, the Industry Technology Advisory Committee, and the Workforce Development Advisory Committee. So as of October 6th of this year, all 4 committees has been kicked off and are currently active. You can see the kickoff meeting dates here on the slide. I want to thank the GRID team for their hard work in supporting this committee, as well as the Workforce Development Committee. Next, we work on a few community engagement and workforce development collaterals. These are documents that will inform communities and other stakeholders of the project's goals, objectives, and intended benefits, while also provide the opportunities to share input. So far, we've translated the RETA fact sheet into Spanish, and we also developed a CTAC specific one-pager, which provides an overview of the committee itself. So these collaterals will be used during our outreach activities, and we expect to develop similar resources as we implement our community engagement strategy and equity plan. Moving on to the Open Access Research and Development Testing Center, aka our lab. The drawings for the lab has been submitted to the city of Pomona, and we're awaiting their approval to move forward. Next, we have the website. We've been working diligently with our partner at Momentum to build and develop our website, and the site is finally live. I'll make sure to link it in the chat so you can check it out. We're in the stage of building out subpages for each committees, and that should be finalized within the next couple of weeks. Lastly, we're currently working with the Industry Technology Advisory Committee to finalize a questionnaire to solicit information on fleet needs and battery electric truck technology. We're interviewing a series of truck manufacturers and key suppliers for this process, and the result of the questionnaire will be used to inform the fleet needs and technology and maturity assessment framework. And that's all that I have regarding the project update. Feel free to enter your questions in the chat and we'll answer them later on in the Q&A section. And with that, I'll pass it to Giovanni.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tuan, for that. I'm going to just give a quick update here on the launch of our Workforce Development Advisory Committee, WEDAC for short. So as Tuan alluded, right, we officially launched the WEDAC, and it was the last committee that needed to be launched. And it was, we held our initial meeting on October 6th, so very recently. And we also convened a smaller group, a subcommittee of the larger WEDAC on November 10th as well. So similar to the CTAC, with this body, the CTAC will be developing what we're calling the Community Engagement Strategy and Equity Plan. And our subcommittee for the CTAC that also met, as we alluded to earlier, provided, they were able to review it and provide us some feedback, suggestions of what they liked, what they felt was missing, what should be changed. So similar to that work that we did with the CTAC subcommittee on that document, we did something similar with the WEDAC. And so with the WEDAC, we are working on a workforce development plan. And so we convened a subcommittee on November 10th, where we reviewed that current document, where we also obtained feedback that we eventually incorporated into the plan as well. And again, just as a reminder for folks, the WEDAC, the members are there to help inform the project, just like the CTAC, right? But that focuses, of course, on workforce development and training needs in the zero emission technology industry, and to promote equitable growth opportunities for local and frontline communities impacted by the freight movement. And so relevant members for that particular committee include but are not limited to industry, government, nonprofit organizations, academia, labor, CBOs, and workforce development organizations. And you'll actually see on the image displayed, those were the many different institutions, organizations that joined us to launch this WEDAC. So we're very excited as well in just the diversity that we see in the organizations, the focus of the organizations and the institutions, labor partners that we're seeing showing a huge interest in this work and really wanting to join us for this collective effort here. So we wanted to show you, we got questions in the other committees like, hey, who's a part of the CTAC? Who's a part of the ITAC? So we also wanted to show you all, the CTAC members here, who's joining us for the workforce development work, right? So we're happy to show you that, and as well as the dates here that we have already scheduled for the future quarterly WEDAC meetings starting next year. We already held our first one on October 6th, and the next one is set for January 12th on a quarterly basis for the next year. So that's all I have on this update for the WEDAC, and I'll kick it over to my colleague Stella.
Yeah, thank you, Giovanni. Appreciate it. So again, I can't stress enough how just grateful we are for the representation on all of the advisory committees. You know, it is so diverse, so rich in, you know, just expertise. And so, you know, we're really, really thankful for that. But we wanted to stop for a few minutes here and just talk about your questions. Or try to respond to your questions, because I know that we just dropped a lot on you. But if you have any questions, this is a great time to do that. And then we'll follow up. We have a few questions that we wanted to ask everyone in the audience as well. So if you want to, you know, just go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, there we go. Nancy, starting us off. Thank you, Nancy.
Sure, no problem. Thanks, Stella, and everybody for all the great presentations. It's really great information, and that WEDAC committee is super interesting, diverse indeed. I saw in a couple of slides the word subcommittee. I see committee and subcommittee, and I'm confused what a subcommittee is, and maybe it's the same thing, but I wasn't clear on that. So that's my question.
No problem. No problem. Giovanni, do you want to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the larger committee, right? When we refer to the CTAC or the WEDAC, you know, it's just everyone that has agreed to want to join and participate in that committee. And folks can also participate in different committees. We do have folks that are on the CTAC and the WEDAC, right? So we've opened it up and have that flexibility for folks that want to be a part of other committees to be able to do so. But when we refer to subcommittee, it's just literally a smaller group that will meet. There are no regularly scheduled meetings for the subcommittee. It's really on a case-by-case basis when we have maybe a particular document that we would love stakeholder feedback, advisory committee member feedback, you know, to help guide. So think of it as like a working group, right? It's more like a working group. And so the first activity we did with a subcommittee on the CTAC and the WEDAC side was reviewing our plans for each committee, for each body, and giving us feedback to incorporate. That way, you know, we can move forward with having that stakeholder feedback as we move forward and progress with the project. And so in the future, when we have maybe as these efforts continue to evolve, and we come up with maybe different task force or other activities, we may convene another subcommittee, and whoever wants to join that smaller group can do so, right? So I think it's just handled more on a case-by-case basis. It's not really an ongoing, frequent assignment per se.
And it's just people, whoever volunteers to
exactly
be part of that smaller group, then that's who's part of. Okay, all right, thanks.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, and Nancy, we have a list of all the participants for those advisory committees, should anyone want to know. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions about the information that we've presented so far? No, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any messages in the chat, but if you do have questions, please, by all means, just, you know, raise your hand or take yourself off mute. And so if we can go to the next slide, we'll go ahead and start with some questions that we have that we would like you to think about. So the first discussion question is, what information and or updates do you feel would be helpful to your becoming more knowledgeable and comfortable with medium duty, heavy duty vehicles and charging infrastructure components for this project? So what information, updates you feel would be helpful to your becoming more knowledgeable and comfortable with MD, HD vehicles and charging infrastructure components for this project?
Stella, this is Hamid. My question is that what kind of volume are we talking about here? Volume of the freight that that you anticipate for this project. I mean, I understand that for any project you start with very small, but what kind of volume that we are trying to serve?
Understand. And I'm going to ask our colleagues at CalSTART to jump in. Alicia, Nate, Tuan, any thoughts here?
So we're talking about truck volume, right? Like how many vehicles in particular, how many chargers, that kind of thing, Hamid?
Yeah, I mean, for any projects that you want to anticipate, until you go full services. Before you go full services, are we talking about a kind of prototyping and field testing, or any kind of these kind of things before we go there? So what are the steps and stages of this project?
Yeah, I think just like how you described the prototyping and preliminary stages for this technology is really what this project is focused on in the short term, but also for the next couple of years, depending on industry, just how fast the industry keeps up with our ambition. So I guess to say that a different way, we're really focusing on 2 pilot sites to demonstrate this high level, megawatt level charging. And so it's going to be, I know you're coming from an engineering background, so the way I see it is sort of like a prototyping phase, but we are going to have those 2 pilot sites demonstrating the technology. And after that, it just depends on what's feasible as for the industry, what's available from OEMs, from vehicle manufacturers, and also from charger manufacturers. Does that answer your question?
Just to follow up, what are those 2 sites?
Yeah, there's one near the ports, so it's MHX, and that's near the San Pedro Bay ports, and then one in Ontario near the truck distribution centers. That's Travel Centers for America, TA.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Nate. We have another question from Viviana.
Yes, thank you, Stella. My question is, do we have an example of this type of infrastructure in other regions that we could look to? And then just to follow up with that, if we could get information on like impacts, both positive and negative, based on, if there are examples on that.
That's a great question. And I'm going to go back to our CalSTART experts here.
This project is very much like the electric island in the way that I see it, in that I don't know if you all are familiar with the electric island in Portland, Oregon, but they developed that. I think that was mostly Daimler developing the electric island to be a first of its kind like hub charger center for medium and heavy duty trucks. And we're taking some lessons learned from that effort and also other efforts to plan how ingress and egress and what it looks like our pilot sites, because it's going to be, plan is for it to be open to the public. So does that answer your question, Viviana?
Yes, and then just maybe in a future discussion, understanding what exactly those impacts are, both negative and positive. And maybe that's for a later discussion.
Thanks for that.
Good point, Viviana. Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions? I mean, any other responses to the first discussion question? If not, Remy, could we go to our next question, please? So next question, are there other organizations that you feel should be notified and should be part of this effort? I think Giovanna and I both mentioned that there were organizations that really wanted to be at the table, but they just didn't have the bandwidth right now. But we would love any suggestions that you might have for organizations that we should specifically reach out to. Commissioner Badejo says, question here, what will the industry standard be for MDHD vehicles? Great question, Hamid. Moreover, how will this research impact the standards, and are we building the proper framework to include a just transition along the corridors of interest? So, Jackie, I'm going to get to your question in just a second here, but are there any other organizations that you think should be part of this effort? And Hamid, I see your hand up.
Estella, I think that we don't have port representative. You just mentioned that there would be a charge station at the port, which I am familiar with, but we don't have anybody from the port representing here.
Yeah, we did. Thank you, Hamid. We did have Chris Cannon from the Port of LA at our first meeting. And so I'm hoping that there will be representation from the ports, you know, at future meetings. We do have Thomas Jelenik from the PMSA organization. And so we're thankful for that, but I hear you. We need to make sure that we have more representation from the ports for upcoming updates, and to make sure that we get their feedback.
No, don't worry.
Mark?
Yes, hi.
Oh, okay. All right, good deal. So I think I wanted to just real quick go back to Jackie's question. What will the industry standard be for MDHD vehicles? And so Nate or someone from CalSTART?
Yeah, sure. If we're talking about standards for the technology, like the charger standards or infrastructure standards, like those are still in development. I know MCS, so the megawatt charging standard, has been planned to be open for comments by the public this week. So I'm waiting for an update on how that's coming along, but there's a lot of like sort of reconciliation and back and forth between the different standards, because there's not just one MCS. There's SAE has a standard, and where the industry is really working to figure out how these standards overlap and how they differ and how to deal with them. Mm-hmm. So that's the state of the standards, if that's what you're asking about, if it's specific to the technology around the charger and the infrastructure involved.
Thank you, Nate. And then the other part of Jackie's question, how will the research impact standards, and are we building the proper framework to include a just transition along the corridors of interest? And Jackie, just to say, you were on our last week's call, and we had representation from Dominguez Hills, from UC San Bernardino, Giovanni. Who else from academia was there last week? I'm trying to recall.
For the WEDAC?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the WEDAC. So yeah, we do have Cal State, Dominguez Hills, San Bernardino. We do have not being able to join us last week, but we do have Cal State Long Beach that is represented as well via Dr. O'Brien. I believe it's Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
So he's representing Cal State Long Beach on the workforce side. He just couldn't join last week. Yes.
Yeah, and Dana is also on the call from LBCC. So thank you, Dana.
Dana as well.
Yeah. So definitely You know, the research that's being conducted is going to impact the standards, and also to build the framework to include that just transition. You know, we want to make sure that we continue our engagement efforts. Again, some folks just did not have the capacity early on, but we continue to communicate with them, our efforts, our next steps. And so, you know, this is going to be a process that continues to grow as we move into 2023. And of course, equity is right at the top of this effort. So you also asked, Jackie, have local Indigenous groups been engaged? We have done a little bit of outreach around Indigenous communities. We haven't been able to identify individuals just yet, but we will continue that effort. So thank you for the reminder. Appreciate it. All right.
I also want to mention Cal State, excuse me, not Cal State, Cal Poly Pomona is part of the WEDAC efforts, and they joined the subcommittee last week as well. So Dr. Wen Chen over there has been very involved and with this effort as well. I want to, if we're going to move on to the next question, before that, I'd like to kick it over to Nate real quick, who wants to just address something around discussion question number 1. And I also see that Commissioner Jackie Verdejo has a comment as well, but let me kick it over to Nate real quick.
Very good.
Yeah, sure. And would you mind going back to question 1? Thank you. And I just wanted to maybe push on this question a little bit, that part of the work we're looking for, well, part of the work involved with this community engagement and is really disseminating the project. That's what we're looking to this group to help out with. And so we have like fact sheets for overall project overview, and we're thinking through what other materials might be useful for you all or for other organizations involved, both in the CTAC and the WEDAC. And I'm wondering here if maybe we could have just a little bit more input on what might be helpful to you in communicating about this project. So is it just fact sheets? Do we want to go into the technology a little more, and medium and heavy duty vehicles, or why they're important, the pollution and the public health aspect of it? Like what do you all anticipate being very useful in communicating about the work that we're doing here?
And again, if you want to just take yourself off mute or put something in the chat, by all means. But thanks for that, Nate. Yeah, we do need just a little more information from the group here, what they think.
Yeah, I don't mind calling on someone to cold call someone to make sure they're
I'll help you out.
Thanks, Nancy.
I guess one challenge I have as I approach my work in this area is knowing kind of who's doing what. Like I just went to the eTruck website because I needed a reminder as to who the drivers of this work are, and it's EPRI and CalSTART, and it's with CEC funding, if I got that right. So that basically makes it a state, state administrative effort. But there are a lot of players in this space, and some of them are on your committees. So it sometimes is sort of hard to tell who's doing what. And another aspect is that I believe this effort is focused only on battery electrics. Hydrogen is also, in the world and competing for, some of this market. And that's just one example of a topic where there may be separate efforts, parallel efforts, intersecting efforts. And because it's so early in the development and deployment of these zero emission heavy duty vehicles, there's just a lot of activity. So that might be asking too much of any one project to say, well, here's what everybody else is doing. But that's something that I would benefit from, being able to go somewhere and see the whole picture. So I know who's doing what and who's not doing what, for example.
Got it. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because yeah, RETA is not, it's focused mostly on battery electric vehicles and specifically high power charging, high power battery electric vehicles. But we do have other programs at CalSTART that that fund fuel cell technology, so hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and I guess you can't call them the chargers, the dispensers, and so and the infrastructure. So we're working with on our team, Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team. We also have a project called Energize. That's Energize commercial vehicles, and that's where we have a lot of like we still are involved with propping up that industry and that technology, and we are intending to take lessons learned from our work with RETA and see what they mean for Energize and vice versa when it comes to hydrogen fuel cell technology, because we agree that that's going to be key in rolling out the zero emission infrastructure and transportation industry. So that also reminds me of the drayage coordination group, and maybe this is something we can have in our materials in the future, right? Is what other work CalSTART is doing, what other projects we're doing, because it's always going to communicate to RETA and vice versa. But the drayage coordination group is another effort that Tuan and I are leading that really make sure that we put together drayage stakeholders to tackle and figure out the landscape for zero emission drayage vehicles in Southern California. And that coordination group was kicked off last week, and we're getting feedback on, like I said, the landscape, so the barriers, the solutions that they're dealing with in the drayage industry. And that's what RETA is focused on too, right? Is we're starting this off with drayage vehicles specifically. And so this coordination group is going to be key in giving us the sort of feedback for our deliverables that we need in order to roll out this project effectively. And just wanted to highlight that here. And I think that's telling us, what that tells me is we should probably communicate a little bit more and maybe hand out a fact sheet on that information too. Like, what else do we have going on at CalSTART that that relates to this project, but is also something that we can tap into with this project. Okay, so I've talked a lot, I know, and then I think we had a hand raised too that yes. I think it was from Jacqueline or
Jackie or Viviana. I see Viviana's hand up.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to echo Nancy. I think understanding who you're working in collaboration with is helpful, because I also sit on a whole bunch of different meetings like zero emission truck working group and this, and it all seems very separate, but we're looking at the same region, the same stakeholders. And so understanding, is there collaboration between these agencies, or are we working completely separately? That would be helpful. So again, just wanted to echo Nancy's comment about that.
Very good. Thank you, Viviana. Absolutely. Jackie, you have another question?
No, my comment kind of goes along with what Nate was speaking about, having that additional information so we can kind of see everything that we're working with, all the options, because when we get down to the technology, this is serious business because it's going to affect the whole industry moving forward. And so that allows us, while we put community first, to have a better understanding of how to make sure that we are framing everything properly. Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you, Jackie. And then I see Jocelyn's hand.
Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of add on to the conversation, I feel like the lens to which we approach this work in particular with zero emission technology is more focused on the health impacts and that environmental justice component to it, that I feel, I guess in this outward narrative of what this group is doing is not super, how can I say, is not super visible, I guess. And so I think that should be kind of put more in the forefront if, you know, these are the intentions that we're trying to, you know, support to some extent, right? Divesting from the fossil fuel industry complex, right? And also recognizing all of these impacts that frontline communities in our communities face, right? And so I feel like that should be more present. And then another thing, yeah, in terms of relaying this type of information to community members, I think that's one of like our core goals is the why, right? Like why are we in all of these meetings, right? Why are we pushing for this technology? And
Absolutely.
so I feel like that's something that's kind of central to our work and something that could be more reflected here.
Perfect. Thank you, Jocelyn. Really
I appreciate you. Sorry, Stella. I just want to say I appreciate you bringing that up because now I feel like that really that gives us the validation we need to really push for that kind of communication. I think we've talked about that before, and we've had like a couple slides like this is why we're doing this. Look at the public health impact. But now that we've gotten this feedback, we could really double down on that, which is something that's very GRID and CalSTART really appreciate that that okay to do.
Yeah, no, I really want to echo that as well, what Nate just mentioned, and thank you so much for bringing that up, Jocelyn. It is a recent conversation we've had as a team. In fact, we even reached out to some of our partners. Some of you are on this call, just around any research that you have around, you know, health detriments, health characteristics of these target communities along the 710 corridor. That you can point us to any research, any recent research that you may have that you can point to us, so that we could also dive into it and incorporate some of those findings into our work, into our communication, right? To your point, Jocelyn, to put that at the forefront of what we're doing and in the communication, right? As part of the language we're using as well. And so any research you have, please send our way. We really want to dive into that. There's a lot of stuff out there, but anything that you can really point us to, that would be super helpful. So thank you, Jocelyn, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And let's see, I don't see any more hands. Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, actually, thank you.
Okay.
I think building on that, I think one of the things that I think could be useful is have a better understanding, not just about the technologies, but about the corridors and routes and where the fleets are, where the existing fleets are that we're trying to convert to electric, and to understand if some of those routes, some of those corridors are creating some of these impacts, not just health impacts, but also congestion impacts that that placing charging infrastructure in different locations might alter the routes that they're using right now. And so understanding how the truck traffic is moving and where the truck traffic is moving to get onto the 710 and when they get off the 710 and where they're coming from and where they're going. And I say that because it's not just the diesel pollution that's impacting health. It's also tire dust and brake dust, which you're not going to that's not going to change moving to an electric truck. And so moving the trucks, the corridors away from residential areas is still going to be necessary to improve public health.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mark. All right. Viviana, you had another question?
Just one quick comment along with what Mark was sharing. Working with, cities to make sure that there's proper signage, right? A lot of these truck drivers don't necessarily know what routes they're supposed to be going on, is what I've heard from community members. And so making sure that it's clear for them, you know, hey, this is the route I can take. I can't be cutting through these small streets, and making that visible and easy to understand is the only thing I wanted to add.
Thank you. Very important. Thank you, Viviana. And folks, I'm just going to go to the chat here real quick. Let's see. Nancy, you had a comment about the zero emission truck working group under MTA as part of the Long Beach East LA mobility corridor. And so hopefully, I know there's many working groups right now and planning efforts, but you know, if there are any updates, you know, from that end, Nancy, we'd love to, you know, if you could share those with us. If, you know, there's anything that you think we need to know from that group, I think that would be really helpful. Nancy, did you want to say something? Yeah.
Well, the only thing I think that I would maybe recommend is the group developed some principles, and that might be worth sharing with this group or you know, pulling forward. I think, Viviana, I don't know if you're as active in that group, I can't remember, but or if anybody else on this call today is, but that's what pops out for me as being something that they have concluded or accomplished that might be of interest to the center.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. And then Commissioner Badejo put a link to an article about air pollution linked to more severe mental illness study. So appreciate that. We're going to definitely take a look at that. And then Nancy asked about an agenda. Yeah, there was a slide with the agenda. We'll make sure that we copy that into the chat for you there. Okay, let's see, anything else here? Oh, there it is. Thank you, Nate. Thank you very much. Anything else here? Okay, I think we're all caught up. Nancy, did you have another comment?
I do. I did want to share something on this topic of where the trucks go. And again, this is just as an FYI, but recently the Gateway Cities COG partnered with an effort led by Lacey, and I know Lacey is, well, I saw them at least on the WEDAC roster, so I don't know if they're part of this committee. I can't keep track of who's doing what, but anyway, Lacey was applying to the U.S. Department of Energy for some research funding. The other funded partner on the grant is CCERT, which is part of UC Riverside, and the title of the grant is First to Last Mile, Creating an Integrated Goods Movement Charging Network Around the I-710 Corridor. So the focus there is on where is the infrastructure going to need to go, and how is it going to successfully get there. Again, focused just on charging and battery electric. And one of the early building blocks of that work, should it be funded, is looking at where the trucks are congregating, where they're traveling, where the hubs could be, whether there can be distributed locations versus having very large concentrated depots that could create a lot of local impact. And the COG's role in particular is to make sure that the city public works directors are part of the conversation and able to be prepared for this infrastructure to show up physically in the cities along the 710 corridor, and so that you know, communities are not impacted less and less, and hopefully down to nothing, because we're going to zero.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. That was really, really important information, and we will definitely follow up with Lacey. We do have somebody from their organization on one of the committees, so that's really helpful. Let's see, I'd like to go to the next question. I think we were headed to Remy to question 3, just for time's sake. Yeah, what community engagement methods, public facing activities do you recommend? We recommend that we plan in targeted communities to raise awareness on this project. Additionally, what materials would you like to see developed to help promote and raise awareness on project activities. I think this goes to your question or your comment, Jocelyn. We have a list of things that we think could be integral to this effort, but we'd love to hear from you any suggestions, because we have some folks that do this every day, right? What works in one community, we all know might not work in another community. And so anything that you can suggest, I think that'll be really helpful to the overall effort. So appreciate your thoughts here.
Feel free to type it in the chat as well. But I see Dr. Hamid's hand is raised.
You know, for any activities at the port, there is harbor community representative that participate in discussion and implementation of any projects, and they actually have a say in a lot of things. So I don't know if that model works, because that model bring in representative from the local community that are impacted by port activities into any kind of decision making in terms of the e-truck or in terms of the fuel cell or any other technology implementation. So just a point of information.
Thank you. Very helpful. Anything else? Community engagement methods, public facing activities that will raise awareness.
Yeah, maybe we could give some examples of the methods that we're thinking, or the activities. Like, I think right now we're planning for partner presentations and then other webinars, but then we're also thinking, like, what if town halls, or what if there are other methods of engagement that are maybe more effective? What do you all think, based on your experience, in order to involve the community, involve all the people that we want to get feedback from?
Jackie? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I believe that is very important to allow the people to guide these processes and to involve them in a way where they're participating at every level. And so that is, we're talking about, you know, different documents that we'll need to have the proper community messaging, but like, how do we get the community to participate? And my experience has always been like, it's very effective if they're included in a way where they're learning, and also like their capacity is being built around these issues, and you know, they have just an active participation. So I feel that that's something that's very important. So I don't know like what the capacity of the group or the effort will be. I think if I knew that information, that would help frame out a righteous engagement for the people to participate, almost like Prop 9, how students should participate. If it's local schools, could it be like a cohort, or can they do some type of, I can't think of the proper word right now, but just something that the community is also learning as well, because we have so many intelligent youth, like in middle school, who's very knowledgeable about this industry and the field. And so how are we actively engaging them?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jackie. Really appreciate it. We had, a little bit of this discussion the other day, doing presentations for high schools and colleges. Nancy suggesting a presentation to the 27 cities of the COG. Thank you, Nancy. Really appreciate that. So, any groups that you think we should get in front, please, by all means, you don't have to, list it right now, but if you want to shoot us an email later on, just thinking about how, we can do an effective community engagement effort. This will be really helpful. Ambar says, libraries, great place to share information. Thank you, Ambar. Yeah, so there's some great ideas out there. Giovanni and I attended a ride and drive. When was that? Kind of during the summer, I think, over in Fontana. That was so fun. We actually got to drive an electric truck. And so Alicia was there, and our CalSTART and EPRI partners. So, could we do something like that? I mean, who knows? But I think, we're going to put everything on the table and see if we're able to pull some of these things off. And so, we'll keep you posted on that. I see a question from Jocelyn, and then I'll go to Dana.
Yeah, I have to hop off soon, so I just wanted to say my comment. But yeah, there's definitely, I think, different layers to the outreach. There's definitely the route of like presentations, but I also did want to say, like, if there was also opportunities to do more of like those town halls or like more intentional direct engagement with the community members where they get feedback. I would probably propose leveraging some type of funding for like translation, for food, making it so that folks are in a space where like they're able to get this, I guess make it more accessible, right? And then be able to provide these other elements that folks could really appreciate when also receiving this information, or if they're also giving feedback to this project.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Appreciate that. I'm going to go to the chat real quick, and then I'm going to ask if we can move on to the fourth question, because we're getting close and I know people have to start jumping off here. So Dana says LBCC is opening a North Long Beach Center in February. We'd love to host a community outreach session there. So that's awesome. And then Ambar says, anytime there are community events in cities, farmers markets, small business, pop-ups, movie events, park events, keep in mind intergenerational outreach. Some folks use community centers, others depend on social media. Absolutely. And Alicia says CalSTART and CARB hosted the ZET showcase in Fontana that I mentioned. And so there's a video link right there. Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate that. That was so much fun. Remy, can we go to the fourth question? I know it's a polling question, so I want to get that in.
Actually, yeah, it's part of the third question. So if we go back to the, it's very related to this. So, we just talked about different, engagement activities we can do. And so we wanted to ask, related to this conversation here on question 3, what do you think we should prioritize to do first, right? So let me launch this poll that gives you some ideas of what we're thinking about. So maybe like, take 30 seconds here, a minute to, pick your top 3. What do you think we should prioritize? Top 3. So we'll give you a couple seconds here for that.
Thank you, Giovanni.
All right, I'll give it like 10, 15 more seconds here. All right, so I could share the results if folks want to see real quick. So social media strategy definitely is number 1 on this, and we have a tie with public education workshops and town halls, whether they're in person or virtual. And then come in, 1 vote short of that is the industry partner presentations. So great, wonderful. So we'll definitely take that into account as we move forward with our planning. So thank you so much for your input there, and we can move on to discussion question number 4.
And this is our last question. For 2023, we'd like to develop a discussion roadmap to help inform the programming and priorities for our quarterly meetings. Understanding the goals and objectives of this project and committee, what topics come to mind that are critical for this group? we're starting to lose folks, but if there's any comments here.
You're talking about a roadmap for this CTAC committee specifically, just to clarify. There's a lot of
Yes,
Just the
yes.
discussion, portion of it, yeah.
Okay.
But yes, it is specifically for the programming of quarterly meetings for the CTAC, correct?
Yeah, so we're basically asking what this group thinks are the priority items for discussion here. Is it methods of engagement? Is it is it outreach and who we're engaging? It could be I don't want to put it in a box, and just give you like multiple choice. I want to leave it open-ended.
Yeah, but we did get one earlier in the discussion. I do want to bring it back up, even though Viviana left. She did give us one, right? So she provided a piece of feedback that I think applies to this question. And she mentioned having future discussions about positive and negative effects on similar projects that we're aware of, similar sites. What have we learned from those sites in the positive and negative impacts of similar efforts? So that's something we got earlier that we'll take into account that applies to this, and I think provides a response to this question, excuse me.
And Giovanni, I'm thinking that if maybe we need to let folks just kind of chew on this a little bit, and we can present it when we send the meeting summary and the PowerPoint presentation and the recording. So because I know we're getting close to the end of our meeting time here, so I'm going to move us along. And Giovanni, if you could cover the closing items.
Yes, no problem. I agree. I can definitely include some of these questions, maybe even all four in the follow-up email, and whatever folks want to respond to us via email. I think would be another great way to obtain that feedback. So great idea. We'll definitely move forward with that. And yeah, so next steps here, we have our next CTAC meeting, quarterly meeting scheduled for February 7th. So the first meeting of 2023 will be on February 7th, 10 a.m. And then we still have some industry partner presentations pending that we've been, thinking about. We're still discussing as a team, topics and, when and how we'll exactly roll that out. So when we have more details, we'll be sure to communicate that out to the whole group. And then, of course, we'll be following up, in the coming days for folks that joined late or couldn't make it today. We'll be following up with a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, a recording of the meeting, and a meeting summary so that you can review all that at your leisure. So yeah, and then next slide, please. Just wanted to provide once again our emails. Here's the grid team, Stella and I, but as well as our EPRI representative, Kristen Bush. So here's our emails if you'd like to contact us with any questions or other information that you'd like to send our way. Next slide. Would like to also just display the email of our CalSTART colleagues as well that you can reach out to. And again, you could also respond to the follow-up email that I'll be sending everyone with any additional information as well. So with that, I'll kick it off to my colleagues, anyone that may have any closing words. But yeah, definitely want to thank all of our partners on this call today and those displayed on your screen for making these efforts possible.
Thank you, Giovanni. And just again, a thanks to all of you for participating, for your feedback, suggestions, and for your ongoing support and participation in this really important project. Anyone from CalSTART, final comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again to everyone. We're going to use all this great feedback and incorporate it into our plan. It's really useful. This is what really drives the project. So really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate. All right. Thank you all. You have a wonderful day, wonderful week ahead. And we'll see you in 2023, if not sooner, hopefully. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.